Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to do a little bit of a different video. I want to talk to you about Honda, not the company, but the brand that's kind of built the motorcycle over the years. And I'm going to do it through these two bikes that I own. I know they're not very similar, but we're going to talk about really underlying similarities between these two. And of course, the differences are pretty obvious. This is my 1991 Honda Nighthawk 750. It only has 3,200 miles on it. I haven't been riding it very much. You guys, some of you know the story about how I got this bike, and as cluttered as my garage is, I really don't want to get rid of it. And then this is my Africa Twin. This is not the DCT model, so just a normal manual transmission that you have to shift. But those of you familiar with this bike, you will know that this is a kind of a go anywhere bike. So we'll talk about that. But you know, since Honda started in 1948, Soichiro Honda started it, and I believe at the beginning he was just making parts and whatnot, and then the big success came from the Super Cub. And in those days, it was always about reliability and simplicity. And in a lot of ways, not much has changed in that sense. I think the famous story is that with the Super Cub, he would have his engineers drop the bike at waist height and then pick it up. And it would have to survive that multiple times and just start right back up. And his whole thing was that a housewife should be able to ride this to the store and back without having to worry about parts, engine, or even knowing like what those things are, and otherwise it wouldn't be a Honda. And I think a lot of that has stayed with the brand over the years. So talking about these two bikes, this is a 1990s quintessential kind of a standard answer to the Japanese bike. It is a 747cc inline four. And by today's standards, it's probably slow, but really not that slow. I mean, you could pick one of these up, pretty cheap, mind you, because they made a lot of them. And it's one of my favorite bikes. In fact, my very first bike was a very identical clone to this, but in yellow. And I always regretted selling that bike. So when this one came across, I had to kind of rewind that bad decision, and I'm really glad I did. They're not without their faults. The carburetor doesn't need to get rebuilt quite often because it does gum up if you don't ride it every day, and it's actually quite a bit of a job. So in today's prices, it'll probably cost you almost $1,000 now to get this rebuilt, because that's 4 carburetors and they're sitting under that tank, and they're kind of not too difficult to get to. This is the California model, so it has some additional hoses that connect different parts together, I guess, for emissions. And so it is a bit of a maintenance there. And the other thing that I've noticed on this bike, the only other thing that ever goes wrong, and it goes wrong often, is these fork seals. And I just had them replaced not that long ago, but my fork seals do end up giving out quite often on these bikes. But I've really had no reliability issues on this or my other bike, and I can talk to higher mile bikes, because one of my best friends has had his since 1999. So his is an identical bike to this, but in 1999. And I believe he's got at least 50,000, maybe 60,000 miles on it. Treated it relatively badly. It's never been garaged, and has done a ton of miles on the road with me when I was on my Africa Twin. Very little maintenance, and it's just kept going. So, but just like a model of simplicity, there's really no frills at all on this bike. It's essentially as bare bones as a bike can get. No anti-lock brakes, no traction control, no electronic nannies of any kind. Again, it's not fuel injected, so you got the carburetors, and just nothing that would you'd get on today's bikes, but really just it gives you that real visceral kind of you're driving a real motorcycle feel when you're riding it. And it's super easy to ride. It's obviously an upright, so when you're on it, if you're not familiar with that term, an upright is when you're sitting on a bike upright, like that. And it's a very comfortable seating position. You can ride like this for hours, as opposed to, you know, more of a kind of a racy bike where you would be down here, or more of a cruiser where you would probably be back here. I don't find either of those positions too comfortable. That's why most of my bikes are uprights, and I really, really enjoy this riding position. So yeah, that's this bike. And over here, we've got the Africa Twin. Now this bike's actually got quite a bit more technology. So it has analog brakes, traction control. There's versions of this bike, which people really love. If you're looking at an adventure bike, you've got some options. You've got like the Multistrada from Ducati. You got this bike. You've got the obvious one, the BMW GS series, and you have now you have the Harley Davidson Pan America, and there's probably several other ones, the Tiger, the Triumph Tiger, and I believe that's what it's called. There's a lot of them out there, but this bike is just like, I don't know, there's something special about it, something so authentic about the Africa Twin, where again, very much like the Nighthawk, it's not trying to be something it's not. It's very authentic, it's simple, and it has no additional frills. So again, it does have traction control, it does have anti-lock brakes, it does have a couple electronic doohickeys that are cool, and with DCT, obviously, that would be the case. It handles amazingly, super easy to ride, and it's also, I guess, more or less an upright bike. So when I sit on this, more or less the same riding position, but a much more commanding riding position. When I'm riding this, I feel like I'm in the SUV of bikes. It's so awesome. It just puts a big smile on your face. So what do they have in common? Really comes down to what I said as a brand. It's about simplicity, reliability, and authenticity, right? They're just authentic to what they are. They're not trying to be something different. It's not trying to sell you on a frill that you don't need, and it's not trying to win races. At least these aren't. Honda does win races, and that is how it really kind of took off. Honda wouldn't really be a brand without racing, but that's not what these bikes do, and they don't try to do that. So they're not trying to sell you more speed, more power, or any additional features. Super authentic. And I think that's what the brand has been able to preserve over the years. And it's really why I love Honda, because every time I get on one of these bikes, especially these two, but even their other bikes, I feel that. I feel just this kind of basic authenticity, and I know it's not going to leave me stranded because I've never been stranded on a bike. I'd like to take you on a ride with me on each one of these and just kind of talk a little bit about how they feel to ride. Okay, we're on the Africa Twin, and wow, first noticeable thing, very much like on the Nighthawk is super noticeable, is the ride height. Yeah, it's so good. Woo-hoo! Get some! So good. So good. What a commanding ride position. But still simple. Still really nice and authentic. Just love that. Gets up there. Gets up and goes quick. Oh yeah. What a lovely, lovely bike. What a lovely bike. You know, I've struggled with, which bike to get rid of recently. I think my Z900 is going to be the first to go. And I've thought about maybe picking out a different adventure bike, just to have a little variety or whatever. But man, every time I get on this Africa Twin, I ask myself, why would you ever get out of this bike? This is such a sick bike. It's not the most capable off-roader. If you want it to be that, you're gonna have to upgrade a bunch of stuff, you know, which a lot of you guys do out there. You do a bunch of stuff to your bikes. I don't do a ton of stuff to these bikes, and I just love this setup for the street. It's such a great all-around kind of bike, and I could commute with this bike. I could zip around town with it. It's not super narrow, so lane splitting is you know, not the best lane splitter, which I like to do here in Southern California. That's a pretty normal thing, by the way, those of you who are like cringing at the thought of lane splitting. Yeah, it's one of the things I've noticed about this bike is how balanced it is. I love the balance in this bike. Any other bike, when I come to a stop, I pretty much have to put my foot down almost right away. With this bike here, maybe we won't get lucky, but I'm gonna come to a stop, and look at that. It just stayed balanced for a crazy amount of time. Just because it feels like it's like exactly 50-50 left-right. Would like to hear from you Africa Twin guys if you feel like your bike is also the most balanced bike you've ever ridden. See, like super slow, and as long as I'm moving even a tiny little bit, this bike just wants to stay upright, just a tiny little bit. I do miss having a tachometer. I mean, this isn't much of a tach. It's just like digital crap. Don't like that. Kind of wished Honda would just go back to like old school analog tachs. If you're in Southern California and you want to see like a review of your bike, or like an extended review by like a total amateur who doesn't know what he's talking about, contact me. Tell you what, if I drop your bike, I'll buy you a new one, or I'll pay for it or whatever. But yeah, that'll be fun. If you want to reach out, I'm happy to do that. Especially if you have a Pan America, I'd love to, like a newer Pan America. I'd love to ride that and see what it's about. Or if you know, Harley, if you're somebody forwards you this video, let's talk.
We were built to thrive, yeah. I think that we've already know, yeah. I think that we've already know. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong. You got me like, oh yeah. I think that we've already know. Sick of dealing with the old plan. They know that we're calling it wrong.
Okay. Back on the Nighthawk, and first impression is always the same. This bike is freaking low to the ground. It's one of the lowest bikes I've ever ridden. It's still nice and comfortable, very maneuverable, but it is low. It doesn't have a super commanding position of the road, you know. That's the Cliff Notes version of that. Woo-hoo! God damn! Woo! Just tons of power, more than you'll need. Yeah, a handful of times. And even when you lock up the brakes, it's still pretty controllable. I mean, you know, it's an upright bike, so there's not a lot to think about. Just hold on for dear life and hope for the best. But it does keep going nice and straight. And then reliability. Never had a problem with this bike. The only, like I said, the only thing you'll ever have on this bike is if you leave it for too long and not ride it, it doesn't like that. And it's super easy to work on. I mean, anyone can figure out how to work on a Nighthawk, on the CB750. Let's see if we can see some of the nicer views today. We'll go this way. Give you guys a little treat. What a day! What a day! Oh my goodness. Look at that. What a day. I am so lucky. The Nighthawk, get distracted easy. Yeah, super awesome bike. Is this a good beginner bike? You know, you guys have always asked that. Yes and no. I think that's the correct answer. It's not the safest new beginner bike, and it is a lot of bike, you know. It is a lot of bike, 750. That's a lot for your first bike. But, you know, to each his own. Suspension, not the best, but like, keep in mind, this bike is 34 years old, and the design is even technically older than that, and it didn't change a whole lot from the previous design, and these suspension parts are just ancient now. It does okay, but it's not like super compliant or super comfortable, but again, really good. The only other thing I'll say about this bike, the downside of that very low seating position is your knee is a little bit high off the ground, right? And buddy, that can wear on you over time. So, because just the angle between your torso and your upper thigh is a little too acute. But again, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Honda as a brand. And this I think if any bike represents Honda as a brand for me, it's this. It's the Nighthawk. They made a shit ton of these. And a lot of you guys mutilated them and turned them into shitty cafe bikes. You heard me, shitty cafe bikes. And I hate you for doing that, because those things suck to ride, and this thing is a pleasure to ride. If you get one of these bikes, just keep it the way it is, you know? Just keep it the way it is. Fix it up, clean it up, and keep it the way it is. Oh my God, that's a lot of nonsense bumps on this road. All right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed that video, and hopefully you agree that Honda stayed true to the brand in reliability, simplicity, and authenticity. And want to hear from you, your thoughts on both of these bikes, and just Honda in general, what you think of it, whether or not you agree with me. Put that in the comments down below. I'll read every single one and reply to them. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.